It is not new for native English speakers from the West to get a job as an English teacher in the Far East and use this as a ticket out of their home countries and in turn travel to places that they could have only dreamt of traveling to before. Lindsay Hawker, a 22-year-old British woman, was no different. Though she had dreams of her own, she decided to put her life goals on hold, leave her home to explore Japan, whilst being employed as an English teacher. Unfortunately, she would never return home alive to England, for she was raped and murdered by a Japanese man named Tatsuya Ichihashi. Was justice served? Let's find out. Lindsay Hawker was born on 30th December 1984 to Bill and Julia Hawker. They lived in Coventry, England, and her family came from the nearby village of Warwickshire. She achieved a first-class honours degree in biology in 2006, and though she planned to pursue a master's degree, she taught English for a year in Japan starting in October 2006 at the Koiwa, Tokyo branch of Nova. She and her boyfriend were planning on him joining her in the summer, where they would set on tour. In 2007, 22-year-old Lindsay arrived in Japan for her position at the Tokyo branch of Nova, Japan's largest private English school. Lindsay told her family that Tokyo was fairly safe and that she had made new friends there. Whilst in Japan, Hawker shared her accommodation with two other foreign female teachers. On the day she disappeared, her family became distressed because of a lack of contact. She had always used email, Skype and telephone calls to maintain frequent contacts with her family. On March 22, 2007, Lindsay traveled by train from work to home. During the journey, a stranger named Tatsuya Ichihachi approached her saying that he wanted to learn English to go abroad for studies. He claimed to be one of her students, but Lindsay knew all of her students and Tatsuya was not one of them. Nevertheless, Lindsay invited the inquisitive young man to her apartment where he met her roommates. Tatsuya sketched a picture of Lindsay and signed it with his name and phone number. About Tatsuya Ichihashi, he was born in Chiba Prefecture on January 5, 1979. He graduated from Chiba University where he majored in horticulture, but he never worked in the field. For you see, he was from a wealthy family, his mother a dentist and his father a brain surgeon. They provided him with a comfortable allowance each month, and though Tatsuya was socially isolated and obsessed with violent manga, his girlfriend described him as a serious and stable man. Tatsuya was obsessed with physical fitness and spent countless hours working out. Despite this regimen, his mental health was deteriorating and he told friends that he was feeling unstable. Unfortunately, no one urged him to seek medical help. On March 24th, Lindsay said goodbye to her roommates and left their apartment, but she would never come back. 2 days after, on March 26th, the staff of the Nova school contacted Lindsay's father and told him that Lindsay had not shown up for her classes for 2 days. Her roommates too called the police and reported her missing. Lindsay's father, Bill Hawker, wasted no time and immediately booked a ticket and left for Japan. Meanwhile, in Japan, police got CCTV photos of March 25, 2007, where Lindsay and Ichihashi were seen in a cafe ordering drinks. Lindsay appeared to be uncomfortable, but they sat there for 50 minutes while Lindsay gave Tatsuya an English lesson. After the lesson, it seems that the pair got a taxi and left. The taxi stopped in front of Ichihashi's apartment, and he used the excuse of having no money to lure her into his apartment. Lindsay asked the taxi driver to wait for her and went inside with Ichihashi. Why did she do that? I do not know. The taxi driver left after 7 minutes and Lindsay didn't come back. He was the last person who saw her alive. In Ichikawa, a suburban town east of Tokyo, 9 police officers assembled outside of Ichihashi's apartment. As he was leaving, he saw something that tipped him off and he started running. Although he was barefoot and just wearing a backpack, he managed to escape the officers. Police went inside his apartment and unfortunately found the naked body of Lindsay Hawker buried in the bathtub, which was filled with a mixture of compost soil and sand and placed on the apartment's balcony. A small white hand protruded from the mixture. Neighbors testified that they had indeed heard the heavy sound of something striking metal and then something being dragged. Lindsay had been gagged with a scarf and her hands and feet were bound with gardening ties. Her head had been shaved and her hair was found in a plastic bag. Lindsay's upper body was bruised, which indicated that she had been subjected to a prolonged attack. The egg-sized bruises were inflicted with a fist. Other marks on her upper body were from collisions with furniture. Ichihashi had strangled her and broke the cartilage in her neck, leaving her dead. On March 27th, Lindsay's parents received a call informing them a body had been found. Her father, who had already booked a flight to Tokyo, was now traveling to identify his daughter. Police by then distributed some 30,000 posters of Tatsuya throughout the country. They put him on a nationwide wanted list and released a new poster for Ichihashi, which included an image of the suspect disguised as a woman. They also released images of the drawing he had made of Lindsay, hoping that someone would recognize his artistic style. Investigators looked into reported sighting of Ichihashi but couldn't find him. Lindsay's family launched a website appealing to the public to help determine his whereabouts. Somewhere in 2009, there were rumors that he had committed suicide, and there were other rumors that he had fled to the Philippines. The police even released life-size cutouts of Ichihashi to raise awareness. Upon fleeing, Tatsuya wandered around Tokyo with no money. He covered his face under masks and wore hats and glasses, carefully avoiding eye contact on surveillance cameras. He did not contact any of his family members, friends, or his girlfriends either. Tatsuya traveled north to Aomori Prefecture, where he would then perform surgery on his own face to disguise his identity. While passing a police station, he saw a wanted poster with his face and one of his moles prominently featured. He then took it upon himself to slice the mole off his left cheek using a box cutter. He also cut off his lower lip to make it look thinner. After cutting his nose, he bound it up with a needle and thread to make it look thinner. You see, by this time he understood that he needed plastic surgery to disguise himself fully, and thus started working. Using the name and address of a dead person to get work with a construction company in Osaka, he managed to save 1 million yen and spent most of the money on 2 plastic surgery operations, which included a nose lift. He also gave false names and addresses to the clinics. However, it is these very attempts to change his identity that ended up giving him away. You see, the Japanese police by this time knew he was at large and had managed to raise the cash reward for information, leading to Ichihashi's arrest from 1 million to 10 million yen. A cosmetic surgery clinic in Nagoya reported to the police when they saw unusual scars on Ichihashi's face and sent them pictures. Police released these to the media and a photograph taken immediately before his most recent surgery. Investigators received a phone tip on November 10, 2009, reporting a man resembling Ichihashi at a ferry terminal. Officers rushed to the scene and arrested Tatsuya Ichihashi in Osaka's Sumino ward. The cash reward was split equally amongst the employers at the clinic, an employee at the construction company that he was working at, and the employee at the Osaka ferry company who had sighted him. Ichihashi was initially charged with abandoning a body because he did not confess upon being arrested. Ichihashi admitted to suffocating Hawker to prevent her from screaming while he raped her. He wrote an apology letter to her family, hoping for them to accept it so that he could get his sentence reduced. Lindsay's family rejected this and asked for the maximum penalty for his crime. It is reported that he was very dramatic when he entered the courtroom and did dramatic gestures of apology to Lindsay's family, which they ignored him. The judges too saw no sincere remorse in him but just plain lying and acting. He had indeed done his crime out of his own lust and desires. As it is uncommon in Japan to impose death penalty for one murder, and especially in Tatsuya's case, who had a clean police record prior to Lindsay's death. On July 2012, he was sentenced to life in prison. Tatsuya was sent to Nagano prison and mostly tends to be aloof. He also tends to only speak to people he feels most comfortable with. The most demeaning part of this all is that he has fans who write to him passionately and his parents who still send him an allowance every month. Whereas Lindsay came to make a living and support her own dreams and got murdered instead. Later on, Tatsuya Ichihashi wrote a book, Until I Was Arrested, which purported to tell his side of the story as a gesture of contrition for the crime I committed. I took Lindsay's life, he wrote. The fact does not change. He offered Lindsay's family royalties that the book earned, but the family rejected his offer. I salute this family, and I absolutely think Lindsay will be so proud of them.